Welcome to AlexGs Aquarium, everybody. Today I've got another update on the 4,200 gallon aquarium, and I'm going to be focusing on the fish only third of the tank. This is a 12-foot by 6-foot area of the aquarium that holds over 1,400 gallons of water. I'm going to be going through how I care for this third of the tank, going through feeding, habitat, and also discuss adding new fish into the tank. Along the way, I'll be giving some updates on how the fish are doing and involve a lot of footage of just the fish in the tank. In the fish only third of the aquarium, I have a large variety of fish species and also size in these fish, which means caring for this tank and keeping everyone happy together is really important. I've gone ahead and put up all the fish that I have in here along with some inverts on the screen to just share what's in here at the time of making this video. The first topic I want to cover today is feeding. I feed these fish multiple times a day, starting off with a Jabo auto feeder that's an auger style. I feed 1 to 2 millimeter spectrum pellets to the fish 3 to 4 times a day, and with an auto feeder like this, it's really good forage to feed pretty much all the fish in the tank except the puffers throughout the day. This helps limit aggression. It helps kind of distribute the food evenly throughout the day so the fish aren't engorging themselves more than they normally would. And then on top of that, I'm feeding frozen food once a day. Now it's a DIY blend of food that I'm feeding the tank. It's about a half a pound of food a day. And I started making my own DIY fish food for a few reasons. One, it's just more economical. Two, I had to really change up how I started feeding this tank when I started introducing all these puffers together. There's a total of 5 puffers in here right now, 4 porcupine puffers and a stars and stripes puffer. And in past aquariums, when I have kept multiple puffers together, I only had 2. So I use a pair of tongs to keep them separated because puffers will bite one another often when they're going after the same piece of food. It's not intentional, it just happens because it's their nature to be quite aggressive when they eat. And when I started adding more than 2 puffers to this tank, I really needed to change up the strategy to feed these fish because they were having more instances where they were biting one another while I was trying to feed chunks of food. And that's why I went to a DIY blend. I put the ingredients up on the screen here. It's nothing earth-shattering or really fancy. From the local fish store, I'm picking up PE mysis, Hikari mysis. Every now and then I'll mix up a couple other smaller foods, and then I will buy clams on a half shell. In addition to that, I will use dried nori and also 2 little fishes as a red dried seaweed as well. I blend those in there. And at the grocery store, I go ahead, I pick up fresh salmon, fresh cod, and then from the frozen food section, I get shrimp, squid, octopus if it's available, and scallops. All of those are chopped up into a maximum size of about a 1-inch cube or 2.5 centimeters. And I do much of the chopping much finer than that. For the shrimp, I leave the exoskeletons on and the tails on. They're just deveined. And once I've chopped all this stuff up, I also run about 1/4 of it or so through a meat grinder to make a finer paste out of it, and that will help feed the smaller fish. And then I put it into a couple of big pots with some seawater from the tank. I get it into a nice slurry consistency, and then I dump it into freezer bags and freeze my own flats. I make food about once a month, and it works out really well for this tank. Now when I feed this food, like I said, it's about a half a pound of food per day. I thaw it out, and then when I feed the fish, what I found to help spread it quickly is I very quickly put it into the tank into a very high flow area. This quickly distributes it and helps spread those big fish out, and there's a lot less aggression. That's how I feed primarily. I also do some other little special snacks throughout the week. I will take some of the macroalgae that I grow, whether it be chaetomorpha, red ulva, and some of the other red macroalgae species, and I will put them into this tank and let all the fish go after them. All the fish eat the macroalgae like crazy, and surprisingly even chaetomorpha, the rabbitfish, kind of eat it like spaghetti. So it does not go uneaten in this tank, so it's nice to be able to grow some of my own food. I'll also take rocks that have aptasia or vermitid snails out of the reef tank or tanks in the back room and add them to this tank. All of the angels, aptasia eating filefish, wrasses, puffers, they will all converge on those rocks and strip them clean of any marine life on them that could be considered a meal. So those are some of the other snacks that I do throughout the week. And I also want to just share as well is that with the reef tank just being attached with the double divider here, I've got several species of snails that are also self-sustaining populations in the system. Stomella, Nazareth snails, Conista snails, and also Sarah snails are reproducing in here, along with all the macro fauna of pod population and mysid shrimp. So there's a lot of continual forage going on in this side of the tank, and that's feeding of the fish only third of the aquarium. Moving on to habitat, the first thing I want to talk about is water flow, which I feel is something often overlooked in fish only tanks. We all use water flow for creating a healthy coral reef, but in fish only tanks, the fish need the water flow as well and also appreciate it. I have two sources of water flow in the fish only side of the tank right now, and the only return from the fish room comes in here. It's a 2-inch line that's fed from an Abyss A400. It's probably generating about 2,000 to 4,000 gallons per hour out of it right now. And then I have an 85 watt DIY propeller pump that is pushing water in the opposite direction. So you get a big gyre effect where water shoots down that way, comes up this other side of the tank and around, so there's like a big raceway of water flow happening in this tank. And the fish oftentimes are swimming into the high water flow, whether it be the propeller pump or the Abyss A400 return, including all the puffers. So having that flow gives those fish a little bit more to swim against. It's never going to match what's in the ocean, but it is generating substantial flow in this third of the tank, and it also helps with dispersing food and also just moving detritus around. Within this habitat as well, I have two large rock islands and a little one in the middle. These rock structures I designed to have a large variety of cave sizes, from accommodating the smallest pseudochromis and damsel all the way up to my stars and stripes puffer and the flamingi tang, which are the largest fish in this tank. All have caves they can hide in here, and everything in between, which gives these fish territories and places for forage and habitat when they need to rest. In addition to that, I've also got my rock wall that's vertically set up by the aquarium divider, which created an enormous habitat in itself where all the different sizes of fish can get back there, again creating some very large forage areas too. So those habitats there really help the fish all be able to get along, have territories, and have rest places throughout the day if they need them. I've also got the sand pit in the middle, which provides a great forage area for the fish and also gives my checkerboard Helicoris wrasses a place to bed down at night, as that's a species of wrasse that likes to bury itself in the sand at night. And a surprising thing I did with the bottom as well was the rubble bottom. Now, I originally wanted to do slabbed rock throughout the bottom and give it a more textured look as opposed to a bare bottom, but I didn't have enough rock. So I went ahead and used all the scrap rubble that I had to create a rubble bottom. And I have to say, not only did it create a really interesting look, but also created a lot of forage area for the fish. The wrasses, puffers, angels, pretty much all the fish in here forage in those rocks. And being that there's a lot of smaller rocks in there, the wrasses and puffers often pick these rocks up, move them or chew on them a bit. I see the Stars and Stripes puffer throughout the day picking those little rocks up, looking underneath them, and often the checkerboard wrasse will be right next to the puffer, and as soon as it picks up a rock and moves it, the wrasse is in there picking off any pods that scurry out. So this is a really interesting habitat to set up. I've noticed that the teeth on the Stars and Stripes puffer, which is going by right now, have been staying nice and trimmed, because that is something that happens with puffers if they are not exercising that bone of their tooth. It needs to be exercised and dulled down. Otherwise, you might have to try and do a makeshift surgery on those fish to try and dull it down or grind it off. And I don't want to have to do that. I want the fish to naturally be able to do that. So this has worked out really well for them. Even my green birdnose wrasse has been able to keep its bill nice and sharp, foraging through the rocks. So again, habitat has really become an important feature to maintaining this fish-only third of the tank. The last topic I want to cover today in caring for this tank is the addition of new fish. Having a large fish-only tank like this and having 1,400 gallons of space, you would think adding fish would be real easy, but I will say it does not always go as planned, and even a tank this size, you can have a lot of the same challenges you can have in a smaller tank when you add new fish in. So I want to talk about what I've been doing and some of the things that I have observed. Starting off, adding new fish to this tank, one way to do it is an acclimation box, which I would say I've had limited success with. In this size of tank, I will put a fish in an acclimation box. As a good example, I had a Fiji foxface I attempted to put in here with my yellow foxface and my magnificent foxface. They didn't seem to care about it in there, but when I let it go, they ruthlessly attacked that fish for 2 days. Had it up in the corners of the tank, would not let it go anywhere. Finally, at the end of the second day, they left it alone, but it was pretty badly beaten up and unfortunately disappeared that night. And so the acclimation box sometimes is not successful. I recently used the acclimation box to introduce my 4th porcupine puffer, and everyone kind of got to see him for a bit. All the puffers came up, checked him out, and then I let him go. Seemed like it was going okay, but over the next couple of weeks, the puffers kind of reasserted who's in charge, and so there were a few scuffles, which porcupine puffers, as I've been learning through keeping multiples, will sometimes chase each other around pretty aggressively and sometimes bite each other on the back. It doesn't cause any serious damage, but it seems to be a territoriality thing along with just sizing up who's in charge and getting a pecking order established. A more preferred method that I have for introducing fish is to kind of put them in a group. Now the first thing I should have mentioned here was never add your new fish into the tank where you do feeding. For me, I introduce all my fish on the far end of the tank from where I am now because I feed at this front corner. So I don't ever want to put new fish in and have them get mistaken as food. I also want to make sure that they get into cover right away. So when I'm introducing a group of fish, and I'm going to use the last big group of fish I introduced, which was 7 angelfish, 4 purple pseudochromis, a harlequin tusk, and a female birdnose wrasse. I had all these fish in holding a minimum of 3 to 4 weeks. In this case, I had several of them for a couple of months because I just slowly was getting these fish and didn't have enough capacity to hold them all at once. But when it was time to put them in, I wanted to put them all in the tank for a few reasons. One, I already had a regal angel, an emperor angel, and a larger annularis angel. Adding in 6 dwarf angels and a queen angel, I knew they were not going to be very happy. I also knew some of the other fish in the tank were not going to be very happy. Same thing with the harlequin tusk and the female birdnose wrasse and the 4 purple pseudochromis I put in. I was very concerned about how those fish were going to be able to be put in and limit the aggression as much as I can. And when you introduce a big group of fish together all at once, I put almost all of them up into the top corner of the rock wall structure in the back so that they had immediate cover. I also took some of my purple pseudochromis and also the female birdnose wrasse I had, put them all into one net, and when I dipped them into the tank, I put them into my Swiss cheese mountain rock pile at the back of the tank so that they came out of the net and instantly were in rock caves. I knew as they got in there was going to be a lot of unhappy fish. My orange-tailed damsels, my checkerboard wrasses, and angelfish were all very unhappy with the new residents. However, because I had a habitat with so many hiding places and territories for caves, the fish that were already in the tank can't cover everything at once. A good example was the regal angel really, and I mean really, did not care for the queen angel being added and had it cornered into a cave. However, the regal couldn't fit into that cave, so the queen angel had wonderful cover and wasn't injured at all. After a few days, everyone started to calm down. Unfortunately, it wasn't without one mishap in this group, and that was my female birdnose wrasse. I put that fish in, really was a little concerned because it was so small. It got bullied a little bit by some of the other wrasses. The male birdnose wrasse didn't even seem to acknowledge it, which I thought was kind of interesting. But then the second day went really well for that fish, and then the third day it disappeared. I have never found it. I don't know what happened, but the rest of the fish have done really well. All the angels are getting along now. Everyone has kind of gotten into their groove. You'll still see some light chasing going on, and even with some of the established fish, my emperor angel's getting big enough now to where it has started grunting. So every now and then the annularis or another fish kind of bugs it a bit and it'll start audibly grunting, which you can hear throughout the basement now, which is kind of interesting. But the fish overall in here have been doing really well, and just seeing this big variety of community, I really enjoy it. Those small fish like the pseudochromis and the damsels had such varieties of color splash. I'm still seeing spawning behavior out of my Aptasia eating filefish, and many of those small dwarf angels have really had a lot of interesting interactions between one another. So overall, fish in here are doing excellent. The sea urchins that are in here right now are being more or less left alone. Every now and then the stars and stripes puffer will eat a few spines off of one of them, but none of the urchins have been eaten yet, which is good to see. I do have one unfortunate loss in the fish only tank, and that was my giant white spot hermit crab. This was a rescue that I pulled in and put in this tank, called him Mr. Krabs. I absolutely loved having that hermit crab in this tank. Unfortunately though, it passed away. It started acting really weird about a week or so before the crab passed, and then when it stopped coming out to eat, I knew something was wrong. But I'm going to try and get some more white spot hermits. They do pop up occasionally. I just got to get a variety of sizes of shells so that it can grow. If you have a comment or question today on this video, please leave it down below. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. As I'm making videos kind of randomly now as topics come up and I want to share updates. If you want to go and check out some other communities out there, I would highly recommend checking out the Reef Beef podcast and their Discord channel. A lot of wonderful hobbyists in there that are really dedicated, serious about reef keeping, and I've been enjoying being a member there for some time now. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and I'll see you on the next video.